Welcome to MogulCast, where we uncover the stories behind the world's greatest business empires. Let's get into today's story. April 4, 2023. The SEC files a lawsuit against Charlie Javice, accusing her of inflating her startup's user base from 300,000 to 4.25 million using AI-generated fake accounts. JPMorgan had paid $175 million for her company just 2 years earlier. The bank never verified the numbers. This is the full story. And it is worse than you think. Charlie Javice was born in Belgium in 1994, raised in a family of doctors, and graduated from the Wharton School at 21. By 23, she had launched Frank, a startup promising to simplify financial aid for college students. The pitch was perfect, a mission-driven fintech solving a real problem. But behind the scenes, she was making a decision that would later unravel everything. Frank's early days were a grind. Javice raised $4.5 million in seed funding by 2018, but growth was slow. Investors wanted scale. She needed a breakthrough. Then, in 2019, she made a choice. Instead of organically growing her user base, she would manufacture it. We will come back to one specific decision, it is the key to everything. By 2020, Frank was on fire. Javice claimed the platform had 4.25 million users, up from just 300,000 a year earlier. She raised $22 million in Series of funding, with backers like Mark Rowan and Apollo Global Management. The media called her a fintech unicorn. But not everyone was convinced. Some employees noticed something odd about the user data. In 2021, JPMorgan came calling. The bank wanted to expand into student financial services and saw Frank as the perfect acquisition. Javice's pitch was irresistible, a platform with millions of engaged users, ready to cross-sell banking products. The deal was signed in September 2021. But not everyone was celebrating. Here is what the media completely got wrong about Frank. It wasn't just about inflating user numbers, it was about exploiting a loophole in due diligence. JPMorgan relied on third-party audits, but those audits never verified the authenticity of the users. The bank assumed the numbers were real. They were not. The AI trick was simple. Javice hired a data scientist to generate fake student profiles using publicly available information. The accounts looked real, names, emails, even financial aid details. But they were all fabricated. By 2022, JPMorgan started noticing discrepancies. The users weren't engaging. The numbers didn't add up. But by then, it was too late. In early 2023, JPMorgan finally launched an internal investigation. They discovered that 95% of Frank's user base was fake. The bank had paid $175 million for a company with almost no real customers. On April 4, 2023, the SEC sued Javice for fraud. The lawsuit revealed a damning detail: Javice had even created a fake data scientist to cover her tracks. The fallout was swift. JPMorgan shut down Frank, writing off the entire $175 million investment. Javice faced criminal charges, with the SEC seeking lifetime bans from the industry. But here's the twist: JPMorgan never admitted fault. The bank claimed it was a victim of fraud, but critics argued it was a failure of basic due diligence. The scandal exposed a glaring weakness in corporate acquisitions: the reliance on unverified data. JPMorgan's due diligence process failed to catch the fraud, even though red flags were everywhere. And if you have made it this far, you already understand something most analysts completely missed: this wasn't just about greed. It was about arrogance. The Charlie Javice scandal sent shockwaves through the startup world. Investors became more skeptical of user metrics, demanding independent audits. Fintech startups face stricter scrutiny, with some failing to raise funding as a result. The case also became a cautionary tale for corporate acquisitions, forcing companies to rethink their due diligence processes. Remember that decision we mentioned at the start? Here is what it actually cost. By choosing to inflate her user base, Javice didn't just defraud JPMorgan, she destroyed trust in an entire industry. Startups now face higher hurdles to prove their legitimacy, and investors are more cautious than ever. The cost wasn't just $175 million. It was the credibility of fintech itself. In 2016, Frank raised $4.5 million in seed funding. By 2021, JPMorgan paid $175 million for a company with 4.25 million fake users. The SEC lawsuit revealed that 95% of Frank's user base was fabricated. Javice faces criminal charges, and JPMorgan wrote off the entire investment. The scandal became one of the most brazen cases of startup fraud in history. Here is the lesson most people missed: the real fraud wasn't the fake users. It was the culture that enabled it. JPMorgan's due diligence process was designed to check boxes, not uncover lies. Investors and corporations assumed the numbers were real because they wanted to believe. The Charlie Javice scandal wasn't an exception, it was a symptom. If you want to understand how this pattern repeats across every major business collapse, the next video covers a story with disturbing parallels. That one is next. That's the story for today on MogulCast. If you found this valuable, subscribe and hit the bell. A new Empire story drops every single weekday. See you tomorrow.